the theory of one of these Indian agents, when the Indians were complaining about not getting what they were promised in these treaties, one of the Indian agents replied, "I don't care, let him eat grass." You know, it didn't matter to him at all. As long as he could get his graft in there, that was the main thing. And like I say, that the governor was particularly bloodthirsty. Well, so in 1863 they said that's the end of it. Any treaty we had with the Indians is null and void. They actually put out, all the Sioux were out of the state. Any Sioux that were in the state, there was a $25 bounty on scalps for any Sioux that got caught in this state. And, who's to say where the scalp came from, or if it was Sioux, or, it was just one of them things. Anyway, after all this, then the Indians were out of the way. At least that was what they were pushing for. So, settlers were safe to go back again. But a lot of them that had been in the area said, that's enough of this, I'm going someplace else. But that was no stopping, and new ones moved in, so it was no problem. I mean, there were still Indians, but after this episode here in the hangings in Mankato, they started a program of wiping out. Many expeditions went through the area to punish the Indians and to push them further down. Finally end up with them in the Black Hills, and then when gold was discovered there, they were done there too. But there's no more Indian problems here. I mean, the only thing that we have is many military expeditions coming through by me, heading to straighten things out with the Indians, including Custer, but he didn't come back. And especially after Custer's last stand, there was a big really going to wipe them out then. There was absolutely no mercy shown at all. And the Indians were just fed up. Okay, like I say, the Indian troubles in this area were really over. I mean, you wipe people out and it tends to put an end to things. But the fort stayed for quite a while because this was still a main trail. So the fort was here for, till 1877. And then it was just disbanded because there was no more a need for it. They had a railroad going into Moorhead, so steamboats weren't down here anymore. Oxcart Trail was no use anymore, though it's still, a main route. And to this day, I mean, there's a highway runs through here, right through the fort. But they dismantled the fort, sold everything off at auction, including this building, which had been moved off, and then later, during the late 30s, I think 1939, it was bought back and moved back in here. This was one of the WPA projects to rebuild this fort. And I'll go into the WPA later because the WPA did a hell of a lot in this area. I mean, there's places like down south they didn't do a lot, but it was because Roosevelt was a Democrat. He had the southern vote. He was trying for the northern vote. So the WPA did a lot up here. But I'll go into the WPA later. That doesn't matter now. Right now we're dealing with this time period. But I'll go out and do some movies outside and give you an idea what the fort looks like now. And I see there's some archaeologists working down along the red because the red is edging in more on the fort ground all the time. So they're trying to get what artifacts they can before it's destroyed. Okay, this is the guardhouse from the outside. You can see the old hand-hewn beams. Nice solid old buildings. They got the nice dovetail corners. And you can see there's the highway running right through the middle of the fort where the old Oxcart Trail used to go. And back over in the corner there is one of the old blockhouses, though that's a rebuilt one that was done at the WPA. In fact, there's another one over in the other corner. And over here you can see the archaeologists poking around along the river. That new big building over there is actually a new interpretive center that the state put up. As I say, that's relatively new. This has been neglected for a long time, but the state finally is doing something. But it's kind of commercial, glitzy, kind of. It's really not as interesting as you would think it'd be. I mean, the history is interesting. The state gets involved and sometimes get kind of varnished over. And this is a view of the west side of the interpretive center. But I'm always leery when the state gets involved. You know, they get fancy. I mean, we have nice, like, these little picnic areas and stuff now, but they do tend to gloss over the history. They kind of make it more proper than it really was. But it's a hot day. It's a windy day, as you can probably hear in the viewfinder. But I came down with the check magnet. I've got the kayak in the back, and the river is right down there. So I'm going to do a little exploring on the red. Go over and visit Minnesota. Okay, there was an attitude at this time, a kind of theory of manifest destiny, that, you know, the past didn't matter, this was our world and we kind of do with it what we wanted, that it was kind of, it was our fate, and we weren't going to let anything stand in the way. But there was a painting put out in 1872 by John Gast called American Progress that it came to symbolize what manifest destiny was. And I'm going to include it on the kind of conclude this video with that picture, and I'm hoping that it is not some copyright infringement or anything.